Welcome back to day 3, and speaking of names, my name is Jim Quick again, your super brain coach of quick learning. I help people to learn quickly. The question I get about my name is always about my last name. Yes, I didn't change it to do what I do. With a name like Quick, you could say my mission, my destiny, my dharma was pretty much planned out. I had to be a runner back in school, and I have to be careful getting speeding tickets because it says Quick right on my driver's license, and you're not going to talk your way out of the ticket. And I get to do my passion, which is helping people to learn faster. And in this session, I'm going to teach you how to remember names and faces faster. I think if there's one business etiquette, networking skill to be able to get good at, it's your ability to remember people's names. Remember their face and remember their names. Because it's impossible to show somebody that you're going to care for their future, their business, or their health, or whatever it is that you have to offer them if you don't remember their names. Now, this could be a short-term issue where you meet somebody. Have you ever met somebody, you get their name, and then seconds later after a handshake breaks, the name just falls right to the floor? Or if it's not a short-term issue, it's more of a long-term issue, like maybe you're at the grocery store, you're at the gym, somebody taps you on your shoulder, you turn around and you see somebody you recognize, but for the life of you, you don't remember their name. And what makes it worse is when that person has the audacity to remember your name, right? So let's fix that right now. In day 1, we talked about the 4 keys to learn any subject or skill faster. So make sure you employ that in this session. Day 2, we talked about the 3 keys to building your memory. We talked about MOM. Remember, M is the motivation. Ask yourself, why do I want to remember a person's name? The O is the observation, which means your attention. It's not your retention, but it's paying attention. And the final M in MOM are the mechanics, the strategies, the step-by-step skills on how to do all the things that we talk about that you'll find in our full Super Brain Quest. Now, when we're talking about remembering names, here's your secret. Let me give you the 7 keys for remembering names and faces. I want you to remember be suave. Be suave. And so these are the 7 keys. What does the B stand for? The B stands for believe. Believe. Because if you believe you can or believe you can't, either way, you're right. Henry Ford said that. Now here's the thing about beliefs. A lot of people don't believe they're good with remembering names, and that's going to keep them from remembering names. So how do beliefs affect our behaviors? I'll show you an example. Shake out your hands right now. Shake them out, everybody, and put them and interlace them together, but keep your index fingers far apart. Keep your index fingers far apart. And what I want you to do is I want you to look at your index fingers and just stare at them. Just stare at them, look at your index fingers, and what I want you to imagine in your mind's eye is I want you to imagine that there's a rubber band around those 2 fingers. I want you to look at your fingers and notice there's a rubber band. Notice what color the rubber band is. Good. And what do you start noticing? I want you to start putting on another rubber band there. Imagine a second rubber band on your fingers. And a third. Wrap another rubber band tightly around it. And what do you begin to see? For many people, your index fingers are actually getting closer. So here's my question for you. Is there really a rubber band around your finger? So here's the thing. Your mind doesn't know the difference between something you vividly imagine and that's something that's real because it changes your belief. In fact, this exercise we just did, athletes do it too. They don't just do physical training anymore, do they? No, they do mental training. They do visualization. Golfers, basketball players will imagine the ball going into the hole or going into the hoop, right? Also, Roger Bannister, great story, right? In 1954, what happened? Throughout human history, nobody could run a mile in less than 4 minutes. He was able to do it, though, because he would visualize himself crossing a finish line, looking at the clock in his mind, and it says 3:59. Because remember, he knows what you know, that success is an inside-out process, that you have to take the invisible and make it visible, but you have to make it clear in your mind, because it's not you'll believe it when you see it, you'll see it when you believe it. If you believe you can or believe you can't, either way, you're right. So it's one thing to see Roger Bannister do it. Throughout human history, nobody could do it. He did it by visualizing himself crossing the finish line, changing in his mind first. The interesting thing, though, is what happened afterwards. Nobody could do it before. All of a sudden, one person does it. What happens in the next few years? Dozens of people started to run a mile in less than 4 minutes. Because what happened? There was a change in what? Was it a change in sneakers? Was it a change in training methodology? Was it a change in nutritional supplementation? No, it was a change of belief. The belief back then was the human heart couldn't sustain running a mile in less than 4 minutes and it would explode in your chest and you would die. When one person dispelled this limiting belief, all of a sudden it gave permission for dozens of people to do the same. So remember, Be SUAVE, the B stands for believe. The E in Be SUAVE stands for exercise. Exercise. And here's the thing, I don't just mean physical exercise, although people who are more physically active will do better on mental acuity, focus, and memory tests. I mean practice, because practice makes what? Practice makes progress. Practice makes progress. Because the bad news is it takes some effort. The good news, it doesn't take as much as you think. But you need to do the exercise. You need to roll up your sleeves and get involved. Now, the S in Be Suave stands for say the name. You say the name. You meet someone for the first time. They tell you their name is Ted. You say, Ted, it's nice to meet you. Because how many times did you just get to hear it? You got to hear it twice. Once from Ted and once from yourself. And so you want to repeat it. Now, the other reason why you want to say the name is because you want to make sure you heard the name correctly. Remember going back to MOM, the O stands for what? Observation. You want to make sure you observe the name correctly, because what if you're at an event and there's lots of background noise, somebody introduces themselves and you call them Ed instead of Ted. It's much better to get corrected when? Up front, rather than having a 20-minute conversation with Ted and say goodbye, Ed. So the first thing you do is you say the name. The U in Be Suave stands for use the name. Use the name. Now you want to use the name, you don't want to abuse the name. Ted, it's great to see you. Ted, what do you want to cover today? Ted, you want to grab some lunch? Ted, Ted, Ted. That wouldn't be an abuse. But what you want to do is you want to use it intelligently 3 or 4 times in the context of the conversation. So use the name. The A in Be Suave stands for ask. What's everyone's favorite subject? It's not entrepreneurship, it's not health, it's not travel, it's what? It's themselves, right? And asking also is a great technique to ask somebody about their name when it's a little bit different. You know, you meet somebody whose name you've never heard before. What can you ask about that person's name? What? You could ask like, how do you spell it? Where's it from? What does it mean? Who are you named after? And so on. Because here's the thing, the name is the sweetest sound to a person's ears. A name is the sweetest sound to a person's ears. So you want to be able to remember it. And one of the things is asking about the person's name. So for example, I was doing a training at the country's largest life insurance company. There was about 100 people in the room, and the training director's name was Nankita. And I was like, wow, that's a beautiful name. How do you spell it? Where's it from? What does it mean? And she paused. I was like, what does it mean? She looked at her coworkers and said, it means graceful, falling waters. And I was like, wow, that's really beautiful. And the audience kind of lit up. And I said, based on the reaction though, I was like, Nankita, how long you worked here? She was like, over 4 years. It was like, a lot of these people, yeah, a lot of good friends here. They're at my wedding. And I was like, raise your hand to the audience. Raise your hand if you knew that's what her name meant. And out of 100+ people, how many people raised their hand? 0. 0 people. And so all of a sudden there's this bond here, because remember, a name is the sweetest sound to a person's ears. So you want to be able to ask about a person's name. Now, the V in Be Suave stands for visualize. This is a fun one. It's visualize. What do I mean by that? A lot of people are better with faces than they are with names. Are you one of those people? You go to somebody and say, hey, I remember your face, but I forgot your name. You never go to someone and say the opposite. You never go to someone and say, hey, I remember your name, but I forgot your face. That wouldn't make a lot of sense, right? You tend to remember the face and forget the name. There's a Chinese proverb that goes, what I hear, I forget. What I see, I remember. What I do, I understand. What I hear, I forget. I heard the name, but I forgot the name. What I see, I remember. I saw the face, I remember the face. And then going back to exercise, what I do, I understand. Because practice makes what? Progress. So you want to visualize. If you tend to remember what you see, try seeing what you want to remember. So going back, if a person's name happens to be Matt, what could you visualize? Pretend you're like 8 years old. You could visualize using their tie as a what? As a doormat. If a person's name is Mary, what could you picture? Getting married, you're meeting someone for the first time and all of a sudden they're in a wedding dress, or maybe they're carrying 2 lambs, like Mary had a little what? Lamb. Imagine you're meeting someone named Mary and she's by the dip and the guacamole and all of a sudden you see her grabbing 2 lambs and holding them underneath her arms. And you're like, Jim, that's so silly, that's so childish. Who are the fastest learners on the planet? They're children, right? How fast can children learn a musical instrument? How fast can they learn another language? They pick up things very fast. And one of the reasons why is they have this curiosity and they have this imagination. And you're like, Jim, I can't imagine that. If you can't imagine it, imagine you can imagine it. Okay, so if a person's name, for example, is Mark, you could picture what? Putting a check mark right on their forehead. If a person's name is Carol, what could you picture? Maybe they're doing Christmas caroling. And here's the thing, it sounds funny, but this is why it works. Information combined with emotion becomes a long-term memory. If you make something funny or give it some action, make it stand out, you're more likely to be able to remember it. And the best thing about it is this: even when it doesn't work, it still works because it gets you to focus on the person and it gets you to focus on the name. And when you remember the name, the pictures disappear because they're a means to an end. They're a means to an end. What I want you to do is overcome what I call the 6-second syndrome. What's the 6-second syndrome? It's somebody gives you their name and you have 6 seconds to do something with that name. Otherwise what? It just disappears forever into the universe. So what you want to do is visualize with the person's name and attach it to the person. And finally, the E in Be Suave stands for end. End. What do I mean by that? I mean ending every conversation using their name. Ted, it was great to meet you. Bob, have a great day. Mary, I'll see you tomorrow. Because if you can walk into a room of 20 or 30 strangers and leave saying goodbye to every single one by name, who are they all going to remember? They're going to remember you, and that's a standout skill. Okay, Super Brains, so what are the 7 keys in a quick review on Be Suave? The B stands for what? Believe. If you believe you can or believe you can't, either way you're right, so keep out the negative self-talk. The E stands for what? Exercise. Because remember, practice makes what? Progress. So practice these tools you're learning in this free mini quest. The S stands for what? You say the name. You say the name because you want to make sure you observe the name. The U stands for what? Use the name. Use it 3 or 4 times in a conversation. The A is ask. Ask about a person's name. Where is it from? How do you spell it? What does it mean? The V stands for visualize, because a picture is worth 1,000 words. And finally, the E in SUAVE stands for what? End. End every conversation using their name. Now, this method on how to remember names and faces is just one of many techniques we teach in the full Superbrain Quest. Because here's the thing, one of the keys is taking these names and turning them into pictures. So in the Superbrain Quest, we go through many different kinds of names and give you my pictures for remembering them very easily and effortlessly. So thank you so much for joining me in this session. I can't wait to see you tomorrow when I talk about and I reveal to you the 5 keys for unlocking what I call your super brain. If you want a brain that's fast, if you want one that's strong, if you want one that's agile, you're going to want to tune into this. I'm your super brain coach, Jim Quick, and I'll see you in tomorrow's lesson.